world.
All right.
My next guest is a B2B intent data SaaS extraordinaire and a VP of sales. With 13 years of experience across a number of sales and leadership functions, named Sales Leader of the Year in 2014 and again in 2018, he believes when it comes to success in B2B, buyer activity matters because it shows the real demand we would otherwise miss. Please welcome TechTarget's Rich Stone, Vice President of Sales, West, to the show. Rich, are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
Yes, I am, and it's awesome to be here. Thank you, Jen, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, and I have to be radically transparent with you. We are learning a lot as marketers from our sales counterparts. So I'm especially excited to get radically transparent with you about numerous different topics today. But before we dive in, I'm going to throw you an easy one. I want to understand if you could give us perhaps a brief look at your professional journey and how you actually found yourself, one, in sales. Are you accidental sales? Or was that, something you always wanted to be in? And then, of course, how did you find yourself as VP over at TechTarget?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I kind of always knew I was going to end up in sales as an initial profession because, I don't know, when I was in school and I didn't have any very specific talents that that would usher me towards another more specific job, like, couldn't write code, wasn't particularly good at any specific subject or anything like that. So I'm like, all right, I think sales is something that I can kind of figure out. So yeah, it's definitely something that I knew I wanted to do. But I didn't know which company I wanted to be in. At the time, I graduated from college in 2008, and technology was something that I thought would be interesting. So I was lucky enough to find out about TechTarget. So I grew up in Massachusetts, and so TechTarget's a pretty known brand in the Massachusetts market. So just in talking to people that I knew in the area, family, friends, they're like, hey, you got to check out this TechTarget place. They have an awesome training program. So that kind of what initially attracted me to TechTarget, because obviously didn't know anything about sales or anything about technology really, other than elementary understanding. So interviewed there, was lucky enough to get offered a position. So I started in the sales training program right out of college, like 2 weeks out of school. So it was a 6-week, pretty intensive training program, kind of like a college course. So full days learning about, high level overviews about what technology is, because back then I didn't know anything really about technology. So learning elementary understanding of technology, and then also some basic sales 101 type principles. And then from there, prior to sales training, I got put into just a territory essentially of net new business. So this is kind of before the SDR function was really a thing. So it was kind of like very similar though, like, hey, you're an inside sales rep. And we were headquartered at the time in Needham, Massachusetts, which is Metro West Boston. And then, I had a territory. They're like, all right, go see if we can find some customers, and here's your patch, and good luck, right? Go prospect, get some calls.
Go sink or swim, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was, but also I had a good support system. The sales leadership team was always there to help me. I had a ton of colleagues on my team in Boston at the headquarters that, these are sellers that would have been there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. A lot of those people are still at TechTarget, and so I learned from being around them, which was cool. And so started off, didn't know anything, wasn't successful right out of the gates, but kind of just willed my way through the first year, and was able to hit my first quota the first year, I remember, and made the club trip, and then was offered the opportunity to move to San Francisco a little bit less than a year after I first started. And so being a kid from Massachusetts, I'd never been to California. So that was something I was really, really excited about, not only for the experience, but also for the business opportunity, because that was, San Francisco is the epicenter of tech. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'd definitely go. I went out for one trip to look at it. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is awesome. There's palm trees. There's a bunch of tall buildings. I dig it. I'm still on the water. So moved out to San Francisco, to be like closer to customers, because a lot of our customers have headquarters, around the Bay Area. So was able to get right into the field like less than a year in. So I was meeting with customers face to face at like 22 years old, which was really, a really cool experience in hindsight, because I don't know too many companies where you can do that. And this is pre-pandemic, obviously pandemic now, we're mostly on Zoom, but where you're seeing customers at such a young age. So I was able to kind of learn by doing. So that's how I kind of started. And then from there, I was in a number of different sales, individual contributor roles, from startup type companies all the way up to mid-market. And then ultimately, I oversaw like our Fortune 100 global customer base. So was selling, global campaigns to customers that, pretty massive marketing and sales organizations. And then I ultimately moved into a sales leadership role from there in January of 2017 to oversee our field office in San Francisco, and then have been in sales leadership functions ever since then. So that's kind of my journey, which is pretty unique, especially in tech, especially in the Bay Area, being at one company for my entire career, which you don't hear too much about, but it's actually not that unique at TechTarget, which I think is a really cool thing.
That definitely says a lot about TechTarget as a place to work. If you've got a lot of people, over 10 years, even 5 years today, I think the average stat of people staying in a job is between 2 and 3 years before they kind of jump to a new challenge, if you will. So definitely says a lot about TechTarget company culture. So we've kind of thrown around this brand, right? TechTarget in the first 5 minutes of our show. And I was just hoping, could you just in one sentence, in one elevator pitch, right? Can you give us the value that TechTarget brings to your customers, just so we have a little bit of an idea of where you work?
Of course, yeah. So TechTarget's been around for over 20 years, and we're a publisher at our core. And what we do is we provide B2B technology customers directly first-party observed intent data that we make actionable for their sales teams. And we do so by content-rich engagement experiences all the way from click to close.
Okay. Well, I can't think of any salesperson that doesn't love action items. So with that being said,
Exactly.
I'm gonna throw over our famous question. And as I ponder this to myself, right, what keeps you up at night professionally? I'm so curious, because for someone who's been in an organization for so long, you know your way around. So I'm really curious to hear from from a senior. What does keep you up at night professionally these days?
Yeah. So given how we work with our customers, so our solutions really help fuel both marketing as well as sales. So historically speaking, we've sold into the marketing organization, right? But then ultimately the end user of what we'd be selling, whether it be data, leads, campaigns, it's to help fuel the outbound sales motion. So the thing that really has kept me up at night over the years has been the ability for our customers to effectively collaborate across their marketing and sales organizations. And that's from top to bottom, from a day-to-day perspective, as well as from a leadership perspective. So I think that's really the most important thing for our business in working with our customers effectively.
Listen, marketing and sales alignment, I think every marketer and sales professional is on the same page that these two teams need to be aligned. I think we've evolved that we understand that we are all working towards a common goal of revenue. It can be challenged because our KPIs and our metrics are different. So there can definitely be kind of that rocky bridge, if you will. But, while I've got you here, when I think about sales and marketing alignment, I know that we as marketers can learn so much from sales. And we also know that, just as a marketer sitting in on a sales call, or kind of, I don't even know if this would be, maybe this would be the next reality TV show we should do, but having a marketer try to be a salesperson for a day, I'm sure that would get, a lot of views. But you guys,
It's a good idea.
you guys got a tough job. What's one thing you wish marketers knew about sales that you feel that we are falling short?
Yeah. I've kind of always said this, and I think it's something that smarter people than I have kind of mentioned to me when I was earlier in my career. I think the best marketers that I know and have worked with in my career have been in sales. And typically that's in an entry level type of position, or have done some time directly interfacing with the field and with customers. So I was actually thinking about this morning. So your VP of marketing, Natalie Binns, at Oktopost, she's probably one of the most dynamic and knowledgeable marketing professionals I've worked with in my career. And she started off in a sales role. And it's because you can understand the seller's mentality and understand what they care most about and be able to talk that talk. And you can do so from a place of experience. And I think it really comes down to confidence, because if you're a marketer, it's hard to come from a place of confidence when you've never really done it before. But if you've had the fortunate experience of being in sales, and even if this was an entry-level SDR training program for a few months, and if you can't do that, at least spend some time with sales in the field with customers so that you have that ability to talk that talk. And that'll just help marketers be more confident in understanding really what sellers care about. And it's from that shared experience where I think it really helps people be able to see each other's side of the house there.
I definitely agree with that, coming from a 10 years sales experience as well. And I do see the conversations are more interesting, or you can really have that empathetic kind of view towards your sales counterparts, and perhaps something to think about, when you're onboarding, whether it's your sales team or marketing team, is having some sessions in your onboardings where you would put your sales and marketers together in the same room and have them essentially do each other's role of some sort, or kind of get that training just to feel that role for a day, because you can't have sales without marketing, and you can't have marketing without sales.
Yeah, even if it's in the training programs, you make a great point. So in the marketing onboard training, if you just have them attend, like it could be a day or a week or 2 weeks, when the sales team is working on their kind of prospecting workshop, and have them go through that process with them, right? That would be so powerful, because that's a shared experience then, and that starts at the entry level. So then when the marketers and sellers are moving up in the org, they have that shared experience. And like, if a entry-level marketing person has made cold calls or sent prospecting emails or done LinkedIn Navigator prospecting, they'll be like, okay, I get how difficult this is. And so it's just, and then also the sellers, they'll have street cred with the sales folks because they've known, and it doesn't have to be like a year, 2 years, that would be best case scenario. But even if it's just through the training period, right? It could be a day of cold calling. Like it doesn't take too long to understand how difficult something is, especially with outbound prospecting. So I think that's super valuable.
Absolutely. And I think as everybody's preparing, I know, large organizations, we have like the boot camps or getting ready for 2022 or the kickoffs. It might be a conversation to be had between marketing and sales on what types of initiatives for marketers that they can join in their sales counterparts to help. And I think that could be an episode all in itself. Maybe we'll have to do kind of a playbook of what that training would look like. I want to hop into the next question. I think this is truly your field of expertise here, but I want to talk about intent data. I know for marketers, it's kind of our worst nightmare and our best friend all in one, because, right, what's somebody's intent to buy? How do we interpret it? How do we work with it? So I want to ask, right, how can us marketers work together with sales to really help generate pipeline faster and revenue using that intent data? Or, just in the field that you are in or the industry, what kind of pieces of advice can you give to marketing leaders when it comes to intent data on how to think about it?
Yeah, high level, there's two things that are important when it comes to intent data. One, this is very important, is the source of that intent data.
Okay.
Right? Where is the data coming from? Is it clean data? Is it accurate? Right? And then the second piece is that data actionable for the sales folks in their day-to-day motions? Is it in their workflow, right? Where they live and breathe every day when they come to work, whether they're working from home or at the office, what platforms and systems are they using on a day-to-day basis? And is that data fueling that motion, right? So to go back to my first point, there's so much intent data out there, right? It's kind of become a dirty word, honestly, in the marketing and sales space because everyone has intent data. But as I mentioned, the most important thing is understanding where that data is coming from. And from our perspective on the TechTarget side, it's very, very crucial that that data is directly observed, right? Not inferred or guessed. And it's done so not only at the account level, but also at the individual prospect level, right? And the only way to do that is if you have the ability to monitor folks in an opt-in first-party data basis. And we have a unique ability to help customers with that because we are a publisher at our core and we own the content that we produce. And we've attracted audiences over a 22-year period that has opted in to engage with our content. And that's really our value to our users. And because of that, all of the intent data that we then provide our customers is TechTarget proprietary data that is directly observed in first party. So anytime you're looking at intent data sources, you need to understand exactly where they're coming from. If there's any gray area or it's fuzzy, you need to ask them more questions about exactly where that's coming from, because if it's not very specific, directly observed data, like that data can cause you productivity, because sellers then could be following up on data that is not accurate, not legitimate, and they have to do additional digging to try to triangulate it. And that's where the account level versus contact level piece comes into play. For example, if I tell you that an account is active, right? But then I can't tell you which contacts at that account are the ones doing the actual activity. If you're a salesperson, then you have to say, all right, this account's active. I have to then go to another contact provider and kind of guess which contacts I think would be most relevant to that intent data at the account level. So it's important to marry those two data points, understand not only the account, but also the people at the account who are active, and then fueling it into the sales outbound workflow. So wherever the sellers are living and breathing, if that's in Salesforce, right? If that's in an outbound sales cadence tool, just making sure that that actionable data is available to them in those specific workflows. And again, so they're not spending time going to other destinations to kind of aggregate information to help them do their outbound motions, just having it at their fingertips. If you do those two key things, don't overcomplicate it, you will be fueling your sales efforts as a marketer. So that's very simple.
Seems so simple, yet we all know how challenging it can be. But I agree with you. I agree with you. But that leads actually quite nicely into my next question. And we've got two more before we wrap up. But when we're talking about intent data, understanding where the data is coming from, what pops to my mind naturally coming from Oktopost, right, is social media. And I think social media has been a complete game changer for B2B. It's become, for lack of a better word, essential, I think, for many marketing strategies and in parallel for many sales professionals and strategies as well. I want to speak specifically about social selling and hear from a sales leader straight from the mouth of a VP sales. How on earth are you incorporating social media into your sales cycle, your training, or your onboarding, or just in general to strengthen your social selling, which again, we know some people in the modern world may just call it selling today. But when we look at social selling, how are you doing it at TechTarget? What are your views on it? Where does social fit into your sales strategy?
Yeah, I am a huge proponent of leveraging social in the sales process. And I truly do believe that that is one way that you're able to differentiate yourself as a salesperson, because the advent of social has been massive, because now there's a lot of information that is publicly available from your customers and prospects that you can identify to help customize your outreach, right? And that's from a social listening perspective. So that is essential. So any way that a marketing organization and or a sales enablement function can help aggregate, right, that pertinent social listening type of material and get that into the hands of salespeople to help them customize their outreach. If you do that alone, that is a huge benefit for a sales organization. Now, if you couple that with enabling the sales folks to be able to leverage social from their own thought leadership perspective to help establish them, right, as an authority in the space, if you combine those two very high level concepts from a social sales perspective, you are head and shoulders above the competition. Because as you mentioned, it's so available, it's so prevalent today. We're lucky we live in a world where these tools are available to us, but I'm always surprised at how few sales organizations are effectively leveraging these resources, right? And that also goes with the marketing and sales enablement folks, that aren't arming their sellers with those tools and those information sources. Again, that they're all free and publicly available for the most part. So for us at TechTarget, this is something that I've personally evangelized at TechTarget for a number of years. So it's a big area of focus for me. And it's something that I've spoken about at many a sales kickoff over the years, going back to all the way to probably 2012, 2013, believe it or not. Now, for me, when I am working with a newly promoted field salesperson who did well as an SDR, is coming then to work in our West sales organization, the first thing that I'll do is I'll sit with them and kind of show them how I would go about prospecting, leveraging social, aggregating information, leveraging social, and then using that for customized outreach, right? And I do this with them because candidly, that's something I still do on a weekly basis. And ideally, if I can make time for it on a daily basis, I still do these things because it's the most effective way really to outreach, right? Referencing mutual connections, right, via LinkedIn, referencing stuff that team has actually put out there on their own social feeds with LinkedIn, Twitter, and getting that into your cadences and outreach. I mean, it's such an effective strategy.
It's absolute gold. And I think what also is interesting, from a marketing and sales perspective, and what perhaps sales professionals may not know, or what marketers may not even realize. But I think one of the key differences between sales and marketing is marketing, right? We're all about, okay, we're going to do this today, and maybe the results we'll start to see in a month, in a few months. And I feel like in some way, that's how social media works. You'll post something, maybe it gets a like, maybe no likes, right? And over time, it gets impressions. And then from the sales organization, right? We like instant, right? Because at the end of the day, we have targets to hit and deals to close. And so we need to move deals down the pipeline. So if we're not seeing that instant interaction on social, it could be quite discouraging, I think, for a sales professional. So I think what's really interesting when it comes to sales and marketing alignment is when you are doing social selling or employee advocacy, if you will, and you're bringing these two teams together and you help your sales organization understand. And as marketers, you can lead the way in this, but help them understand that every piece of content you put out there, whether you're talking about how much you love where you work or, about a product that your company has launched, your network is making these micro purchasing decisions in their mind as they see your feed. And I think going back to kind of that intent data, right? When we start to understand and track those engagements and understanding where certain areas of data are coming from, it gets real powerful. I know that can be an episode on its own, but I'm just loving what I'm hearing when you're saying, that you're an evangelist at TechTarget for using social, and, talking about really empowering your sales team to use it. I think it's pretty critical, and agreed that, if your sales guys aren't on social and coming quote unquote key thought leaders, you are behind in the competition, or you're not going to stand out. And it's tough today, I think, in many markets to be able to stand out through the noise.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's not about instant gratification, which I'm a salesperson, so sellers like instant gratification. So I totally, it's the long game, right? So it's the investment you make over the years that is going to pay dividends over time for you. And I remember this vividly when I first started talking about this at the first sales kickoff. My boss, who's our chief revenue officer, he's like, hey, can we track this back to a deal that you sourced via social? And this was early stages of me kind of thinking about this. And it typically doesn't work that way, where you send LinkedIn posts and then you get a deal from it that week, or you put a tweet out there and a customer retweets it and comments on it like, wow, this is awesome. Like, let's set up a demo. Like,
we wish.
Doesn't typically happen, right? It doesn't typically happen. But to your point, it's over time, every week, every day, putting that content out there, and then also listening to what your customers are saying. Those two things in combination over time, it's about the long game. It's not about instant gratification. It's not about this quarter or even this fiscal year. It's about 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now, which is hard for entry-level salespeople and marketers to think about. But I mean, I've been at the same company for so long that I kind of have seen it pay off for me and for our organization. So I know that it works from firsthand experience. So that's kind of why I feel so passionately about it.
Well, I love it. So to end the show, I'm going to talk a little bit about our favorite network, LinkedIn. And I want to know, Rich, I want to know, what is something about yourself that if we were all to head over to your LinkedIn right now, we would not be able to learn from your LinkedIn profile?
So I had to rack my brain about this one. And I thought about, so I have long hair now, right? As you can see.
For anyone
so
watching,
like,
for anyone watching it on YouTube,
yeah.
You can see the long hair.
Yeah. So I had really long hair in college. So I played football in college. I played defensive line, and like I didn't get a haircut basically from my sophomore year to my senior year. So my hair was much longer. But then as soon as I was like, all right, I'm going to be in the professional world, I'm going to be in sales. So I got like your standard, like, men's business haircut. And this is back in 2008. And I had that same haircut up until 2018, right? And then in 2018, our team at the time, they were like, they had seen a picture of me or something from like back in college or in football or whatever. And they're like, oh, like you should bring the hair back. You should bring the hair back. And I'm like, all right. So at the time in 2018, we did like I don't know, I said, if our team gets to 150% to goal for the year and we stay on that trajectory on a quarterly run rate, I will not get a haircut, right? So essentially that is what happened in 2018. So I had a short, like, haircut. And then that year, our team like absolutely dominated. So they were well above the goal that I had set. So that said, I didn't get a haircut that whole fiscal year. And then into the sales kickoff that year, our team, we had the sales rep of the year. I won sales leader of the year, like, all the accolades, the whole thing. It had long hair. And then I've had long hair ever since then. So it's been since 2018. And now I've been kind of rocking the long hair since then. So now I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll cut it again and kind of think of another incentive to do. But it was definitely it was also a cool like way for me to have an excuse to grow my hair back out, because I truly do like having long hair. So pretty funny story, but not something you would know unless you ask me about it.
So let me ask you this. Is there any correlation right now between the length of your hair and where you are in terms of TechTarget hitting their targets for Q4 2021? The longer the hair, the closer you are?
I mean, I don't know that it's a direct correlation, but it's definitely it definitely probably is most definitely maybe an indirect correlation. I would say yes.
Amazing, Rich. Thank you so much for getting radically transparent with me today. It was a blast, and I hope to have you back. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about social selling. We could talk about hair tricks and tips to increase the acceleration of your pipeline and closing deals. It was a great time.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks so much for having me, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Radically Transparent podcast, brought to you by Oktopost, the only social media management and employee advocacy platform architected for B2B. I'm Jennifer Gutman, your host and director of social strategy here at Oktopost. And if you love today's show, we'd love if you subscribe, rate, and give a raving review wherever you get your podcasts. For more discussion on B2B social media marketing, be sure to follow Oktopost on LinkedIn. And of course, to gain access to all our free social media marketing and employee advocacy resources, head on over to our website, www.oktopost.com. Until next time.